What's going on, guys? It's Noble back again today, and I'm bringing you episode 4 of my Last2First Sprint Mode series. If you don't know what this series is about, then it's essentially me either starting last or dropping to the back at the start of a sprint race and then trying to work my way through to the front as we cross the checkered flag for the final lap. As you can imagine, it's quite chaotic, as sprint mode is usually full of not the cleanest of drivers, so trying to make your way past a dozen drivers without getting a penalty or being spun out is pretty interesting, but that's the whole point and it's very entertaining, so hopefully you guys will enjoy this episode. Let's see, we're kicking things off at Spa in the Caterham and we have 12 drivers in this race. So dropping to the back as we come through turn 1, the usual bit of chaos as there's a number of cars spun as we avoid cars coming together in front of us. But even with that, we've managed to gain 5 positions already as we come up to the run through Eau Rouge on the very first lap. The car ahead of us managing to hit the wall there, losing part of his front wing by the looks of things, but obviously that won't make a difference to his car with no damage in sprint mode, as we just about guess in time which way to overtake that car on his right hand side, as we now use our curves to try and overtake this Mercedes, which looks to be having a bit of trouble driving in a straight line and actually having quite a bit more trouble not crashing into us. But we haven't been affected too badly as we now try and pass this Toro Rosso and bosh up onto 2 wheels and nose diving into the barrier. Yeah, pretty spectacular, that one. I think when that happened in real time, a little bit of poo did come out, but we just about get away with it, dropping down to 9th position as we're back behind this Mercedes once more as we try and get past him as quickly as we can, trying to avoid contact into this left-hander, which we just about do as there's another car buried in the barrier. So back up to P7 as we now have a little bit of free air to try and gain as much time as we can as quickly as possible on a number of cars ahead of us on this opening lap. Looks like there's a Toro Rosso. I can't really see the screen I'm trying to look at whilst commentating is extremely small, but I think it's a Toro Rosso, and there's I think 3 cars side by side ahead of him going through this final sector now on the opening lap. I think we're gaining pretty quickly. We've still got some curves saved up. We're not going to use it yet, as it looked like the car ahead of us was using some of his curves as well, so we weren't going to get the run with him at this point, as it really isn't an overtaking position. But we now come through Blanchimont trying to go on the outside of this Toro Rosso, taking it nice and easy, but still managing to overtake that guy running outside pretty easy, really, as there's a few cars buried in the wall at the bus stop chicane. 2 cars ahead of this Red Bull having come together, which allows us both to pass him as we fake a move to the right as he covers us off and we have to go to the outside for turn 1. Going to leave each other enough room, but then as usual, as you'd expect, a Ferrari in sprint mode comes out of nowhere and just roofs us onto the runoff area as we lose that position to him and another car. So back down to P5 now on this second lap coming through Eau Rouge. We're going to get a much better run than the car ahead of us once again as we move over to the left, using our curves to overtake him and getting a fantastic run on this Ferrari as well, as we now go to his right as he tries to block us off, but we're already past him, so nothing he can do. We're going to have to brake nice and late to try and avoid the steaming Ferrari as he comes into there, and then again taking some avoiding action as he comes back onto the track very unsafely, as you would expect in sprint mode. As we now find ourselves into P3 as the car ahead of us having a big lock-up as we try and put the pressure on him in this second sector of this Spa-Francorchamps circuit. Coming up to Pouhon now, we've got a good run out of the corner, but not an overtaking place and not close enough to make a move as we get a pretty poor entry into that corner. He nearly runs onto that bouncy castle curb, so that gives us a great run out the corner. He's looking to hold the inside, but we managed to squeeze up the inside as we now go side by side through this medium speed right-left chicane, getting the cut back on him, or the switch back, I should say, as we now on his outside for this right-hander. Braking early with the combination of him outbraking himself slightly allows us to get the switchback done and completed, which moves us up to P2. Now going to skip forward a little bit to the start of the second sector on the final lap. We have a Caterham, our teammate, in front of us, sort of very reminiscent of the Jordan F1 team in 1998 around this track, leading 1-2, Damon Hill ahead of Ralf Schumacher, trying to pick up their first victory and a 1-2 for the team. And I think there's actually a quote or something along the lines of, if Damon Hill coming on the team radio saying, if he tries to pass, I will take him out. I imagine our teammate in this race is thinking something along the same lines, but he's messed up into P1, which has allowed us to take P1 in front of him. And he's dropped a long way back now, which isn't going to cause us any trouble for the remainder of this lap, as we now skip to the final chicane of the final lap as we bring the car through that right-left and then cross the line to take the first victory of this episode. Now moving things on in the Caterham once more at Hungary this time. starting in P9 of P14, staying on the right hand side to allow the cars to pass. Looks like we've got a car pretty reluctant to actually overtake us here, but we're going to stamp on the brakes to make sure we get that P14 and then we can carry on our merry way. You can see cars already spun out before we've even got to turn 1. That pretty much sums up sprint mode quite well, as we now make up 2 positions, the car ahead of us making quite, yeah, a lot of lag involved with that guy, but we managed to get past him without coming to blows. The 2 car ahead of us spinning out through turn 2, which means we're already up to P9. As we now come up to this difficult, fast left-hander where I'm sure their cars will now be flying off the road at random points, especially through this right-hander, as we get a nice run through here, just passing through the dirty air, which means we actually overtake off the track. So we're gonna be nice and give that guy his position back, and then overtake him on the exit of this right-left chicane. Going up his inside, hopefully we're not going to make contact and we'll get a bullshit penalty for making him spin, even though it would have been his fault for turning in on us as we were more than halfway alongside, but he knew what he had to do and we get through without a penalty, and we're actually up to P5 now as there's more cars off the track, as this Marusha seems to be struggling quite a bit with mid-corner speed. And then, ironically, he then goes too deep into a corner, giving himself even more poor mid-corner speed, which allows us to make the move as we just about hang around the outside of this penultimate corner to gain P4. Hopefully he won't try and lunge us on the inside. Well, he has, but the nature of that corner means that you're never really close enough to make a bit of contact, as it's a real late braking corner. As we now come up to start the second lap, as the car in front of us for whatever reason decided to try and brake check us, but failing pretty miserably as we take that position off him with ease. So now up to P3. Do believe we're going to skip forward a bit now to the final sector of lap 2 as we close up to the 2 cars ahead of us, going purple as you would expect on this second lap, as the car ahead of us looks like he's made a bit of a mistake in that penultimate corner, going a bit wide, which again allows us to catch up quite a lot. As we come through this final corner, coming onto the pit straight to start the final lap, looks like these guys aren't particularly slow, so it's going to should be a pretty good battle on a track that's hard to overtake. So I'm sure things will be nice and clean in this sprint mode lobby, and we'll be able to get some good entertaining action without everyone punching each other and dying. As we come into this penultimate corner, the car ahead of us has gone flying off there, couldn't handle the pressure of possibly winning a race without being battered off, which means we're now up to P2, and we're coming up to this difficult left-hander once more, behind, I think, is it Force India or Sauber? Yeah, it looks like a Sauber, and he's gone wide out of that right-hander, and we've come up his inside now. We've made the move before the chicane, but of course, ram, there it goes. We've been pushed across the apex and the runoff area of that corner, and again, being pushed around that left-hander, he decides to give us a bit of breathing space for this right-hander. We're going to give him some of his own medicine and brake check him. Have some of that, my good son. And that gives us a nice bit of breathing space for this difficult right-hander, so he's not really close enough to make a lunge on us and ram us across the road, so that is very nice. As we come through the last 2 corners, again, the guys behind not close enough to make any impression on us or try to ram us off to deny us a victory. Funnily enough, I think one of the guys, or both of the guys, are actually ranked 50, so pretty desperate not to lose their rank, but it's happened anyway, so I'm sure they'll get over it at some point. As we move on to the last race of this episode, which is at the India track, and we are in the Marusha, dropping to the last place, 14 drivers in this race once more, and again, cars spinning out before we even get to turn 1. Pretty spectacular, but you'd expect that sort of stuff from sprint mode, as we're now into P9. Looking behind us as we go into turn 3, see 2 cars diving up our inside, so we're going to take an ultra late apex and then get an undercut on not 1, not 2, not even 3, but 8 cars through that one corner. We've gone from P9 down to P11 and then up to P3, all in the space of one corner. Thankfully, when you do sprint mode enough, you can tell when carnage is about to ensue, and we knew it was going to happen there, so we gave the cars plenty of room and then just made sure we got the best exit possible as they all went piling into each other. There was a lot of luck involved, obviously, that people managed to fuck into each other, but still, we had the vision to see what was about to happen and do our best to avoid it, thankfully. As after all that, we found ourselves in P3 as the race leader through this right-left chicane has got it all wrong as he goes flying across the track in front of us, but we managed to avoid him. As we're now into P2 behind this Mercedes, as we're about to come into the final sector. We get a good run out of that corner. We look to the inside, but we know that's not an overtaking position, so we hang back and then try and get a good run out of this right-hander as he nearly loses the car, and we stamp on the brakes to avoid him. Otherwise we would have probably got a penalty for causing a collision, although he was already in the spin. But that's just how this game works. As we come into the final corner, he's taking a defensive line. We're going to try and get the switchback on him once more, as we have done so many times in this episode, and we do it to perfection again. As we get into P1, as we start the second lap, you see the car behind still pretty close. We're going to hope he doesn't lunge us and make us both crash and cost us a lot of time. He's had a little bit of a go. I think that was just him missing his braking point. But we managed to escape him and into this turn 3. You can see no indicator arrow to say he's going to be a bit of a prick and try to lunge us. So we're all clean and ready to go to finish this race in first position, as we now cut to the final sector of the final lap, going purple, trying to get the fastest lap time as possible. See, ragging the car around these final few corners, trying to spot the braking point at that yellow marker on the right there for the final corner, checking it into the apex, being careful not to spin off that bump as we then drive to the line to take the final victory of this episode. So yeah, very entertaining. I enjoyed making this video, so I hope you guys have enjoyed it, and yeah, I want to thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you again soon. Bye for now.